Hi, good evening. My name is Franny Salisbury. I'm a junior biology major and I have a minor in neuroscience here at UK. I am doing research in the Department of Biology under Dr. Bruce O'Hara. And the title of my project is The Effect of Sleep Fragmentation on Alzheimer's Disease. So what you can get from the title is that my research focuses on Alzheimer's disease. Now this disease is something that most of us unfortunately are familiar with. It is estimated that every 65 seconds, someone in the United States is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. So that means just during my 5-minute talk with you today, 4 people will be diagnosed with the disease. Now this disease targets the elderly, and it comes along with major cognitive as well as motor impairments and decline. And so taking a look inside an Alzheimer's disease brain, we see overall neuroinflammation, as well as the buildup of a toxic protein called amyloid beta. Now this protein builds up in plaques around neurons, which causes them to die, and then that in turn is what causes these motor and cognitive impairments. Now it's believed that this amyloid beta protein is building up due to a lack of waste clearance. Amyloid beta is produced naturally in the brain, but it's usually cleared out as waste. Now we think that the reason that this protein is building up is because this waste clearance mechanism is lacking. And this mechanism is believed to occur during sleep. And so fragmented, disrupted, or lack of sleep could lead to a lack of waste clearance and therefore a greater buildup of the protein. It's been shown that there is a correlation between sleep disorders and Alzheimer's disease. And so those suffering from Alzheimer's disease will also report having sleep disturbances like insomnia or sleep apnea or just overall disrupted sleep. Now, it's also been shown that these sleep disturbances have been reported upwards of 10 years before the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. And so some of these patients are suffering from this sleep disorder before the onset of their Alzheimer's. It has not been shown how this sleep disruption or lack of sleep is affecting the buildup of amyloid beta in the brain. And so that's the goal of my project, is to look at how this lack of sleep or disrupted sleep is affecting the buildup of amyloid beta and therefore the progression of the disease. So in order to do this, we obtained 16 3xTGAD mice, which just means that these mice had 3 genetic mutations that conferred Alzheimer's disease in them. So we used these mice and we divided them into 2 groups. We had a sleep fragmented group and an undisturbed group. The undisturbed group was left on their natural sleep cycle for the 4-week protocol, whereas the sleep fragmented group was subjected to 4 1-hour sleep deprivation sessions throughout the day, 5 days a week for 4 weeks. And so this graph up here in the upper right-hand corner shows a typical day for the sleep fragmented group. The grayed out areas are our sleep deprivation sessions, and this shows percent sleep, and so it's showing that our sleep fragmented group got less percent sleep than our undisturbed group. So after our 4-week protocol, we analyzed the brains of all the mice, and we looked at amyloid beta as well as neuroinflammation, which is also another marker of Alzheimer's disease. And so we looked at amyloid beta, we looked at 2 different types, amyloid beta 40 and 42, and those are just 2 different sizes of the protein. And we used a technique called sandwich ELISA to analyze this, and what we found is that there was significant increase in both types of amyloid beta for the group that got less sleep. So that sleep fragmented group had higher levels of amyloid beta than the undisturbed group. And the same thing was seen for those markers of neuroinflammation. We used a TACMAN low density gene expression array technique to look at these markers of neuroinflammation, and we saw significant increase in these markers for neuroinflammation in the group that got less sleep. So the sleep fragmented group, again, had greater neuroinflammation than the other group. And so what do these results mean, and what can we do with them? Basically, the bottom line is that disrupted and lack of sleep is leading to a faster buildup of amyloid beta and therefore faster progression of this disease. So what we can do if future studies support these same results, this can be used in a number of ways. Number 1, sleep disruptions could be screened as a risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. So those patients who reported those sleep disruptions before their diagnosis could be flagged as a high-risk patient for Alzheimer's disease. And that would provide a greater motivation to treating those disorders, and that could lead to an earlier diagnosis for them, which could lead to an overall better result. Now, secondly, those patients who already have Alzheimer's disease who are also reporting sleep disruptions or insomnia, we could focus on treating the sleep disorder as a way to slow the progression of their disease. And so targeting that sleep disruption could possibly slow down the progression of their amyloid beta. And so this information basically just gives us another clue into solving the puzzle that is Alzheimer's disease. And I want to thank you guys for listening to my presentation this evening, and I'm open to any questions if you have them.